And in 2D, it's another quadratic style equation. We're going to make our replacements where u equals x squared, or u squared is equal to x to the fourth. And that means we have 8u squared plus 10u minus 3 equals 0. Again, you can take your pick, and you can either solve this quadratic by factoring or solve it by the quadratic formula. I'm going to choose factoring because I think I've got some good possibilities here. 8 times a negative 3 is negative 24. What are factors of 24 that I can use to get a 10? So I'm thinking if I use a negative 2 or negative positive 12 times a negative 2, that gives me a negative 24, and if I were to add those, I get a positive 10. So I got some really good candidates to break that 10u up into. So I'm going to go 8u squared, then taking the work that I did to the right, that 10u can be broken up into a minus 2u plus 12u, again being conscious with the negative 1 first, minus 3 equals 0, so that when I group, I've got that positive or addition sign in between the grouping symbols. Now we can factor out a 2u out of the first group. That'll be a 4u minus a 1. Then I will factor out a common factor of 3 out of each of these, so factor out a 3. And we're going to have a 4u minus 1. And that's exactly what we wanted to see whenever we factor by that grouping. We want one of those factors to be the same. I'm going to factor those two out of our term, so that's 2u plus 3 equals 0. And we go back into our routine, which should be getting pretty familiar now. We've got two numbers that are multiplied together to get you an answer of 0. So one of these numbers has to equal 0. We just got to go find what they have to be. We'll solve these for u. So 4u equals a 1, which means u is 1/4. We have 2u that has to equal a negative 3, which means u has to equal a negative 3/2. Now go back and make your replacement. U stood for, or was in place of, x squared. So x squared is equal to 1/4, so that means x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 1 over the square root of 4. Some pretty nice numbers to work with because the square root of 1 is 1. So x is plus or minus 1 all over 2. There's two of our solutions. We'll come back and make a replacement for u here. U replaced x squared, so x squared had to equal negative 3/2, which means x has to be equal to plus or minus the square root of a negative 3 over the square root of 2. You got to deal with two things here, and it doesn't really matter what order. The square root of a negative, and you cannot leave a radical in the denominator. So I'm going to get rid of that radical out of the denominator first. Multiply top and bottom by the square root of 2. So that means x is equal to plus or minus the square root of a negative 6 all over 2. And now I can take out that negative, so x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 6 over 2i. There's my other two solutions. So that is factoring by grouping, or at least factoring by a quadratic style, where they have that good candidate where one exponent is half of the other. So this is what you're looking for. Is this 4 twice the 2, or is 2 twice half of 4? Then you can do it in a quadratic manner, as what we just showed.